There are moments in life when a single sentence changes everything you thought you knew about your world. For me, it happened in a quiet doctor's office on a Tuesday afternoon. Nothing dramatic, no shouting, just a calm voice explaining test results that didn't make sense at first. I remember sitting there staring at the paper in my hands while the doctor continued talking about probabilities and medical explanations, but I barely heard any of it. My mind was stuck on one line. The baby wasn't mine. 2 weeks earlier, my wife, Sarah, had given birth to a beautiful baby boy. We had spent months preparing for that moment, painting the nursery, arguing over names, laughing about which one of us the baby might look like. I had imagined holding my son for the first time for so long that it felt like a memory already. But now I was sitting in that office realizing something that didn't fit into the life I thought I had. The baby wasn't mine. Sarah didn't know I had taken the test. That probably sounds cruel, but the doubt had started creeping into my mind long before the results arrived. It wasn't because of anything obvious. There was no confession, no suspicious messages on her phone. It was just a feeling that started quietly and refused to leave. Maybe it was the timing of the pregnancy. Maybe it was the way Sarah avoided certain conversations during those months. I couldn't explain it clearly even to myself. But the doubt kept growing. Finally, I ordered a DNA test without telling her. When the results came back, the truth was sitting right there in black and white. 0% probability. I drove home that afternoon in complete silence. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers hurt. I kept replaying the past year in my mind, searching for a moment that suddenly made sense now. Had there been someone else? Had she lied the entire time? Or was there something I still didn't understand? When I walked into the house, Sarah was sitting on the couch with the baby sleeping against her chest. The afternoon sunlight coming through the window made the room look peaceful, almost like a scene from a family commercial. For a moment, I just stood there watching them. She smiled when she saw me. "Hey," she said softly, "you're home early." I nodded but didn't say anything. The baby made a small sound in his sleep, and Sarah adjusted the blanket around him carefully. She looked tired but happy in the way new mothers often do. And suddenly, I felt like I didn't belong in that room anymore. That night we barely spoke. Sarah assumed I was stressed about work and I didn't correct her. I couldn't bring myself to ask the questions running through my mind. Because I was afraid of the answers. Instead, I made a decision sometime around midnight. I packed a small bag while Sarah slept upstairs with the baby. I moved quietly through the house, trying not to make a sound. It felt strange leaving my own home like a stranger sneaking out of someone else's life. I paused at the bedroom door for a moment before leaving. Sarah was asleep with the baby beside her. I didn't wake her. I didn't leave a note. I just walked out. For the next 3 weeks, I disappeared. I rented a small room in a town about 2 hours away where nobody knew me. The days blurred together in a strange routine. Coffee in the morning, long walks through unfamiliar streets, hours sitting alone thinking about the life I had walked away from. My phone stayed turned off most of the time. Part of me expected Sarah to start calling immediately, but when I finally turned the phone on after a few days, the screen was filled with missed calls and messages. At first, they were confused. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Then they became desperate. "Please talk to me." I couldn't respond because I didn't know what to say. "How do you tell your wife that the baby she believes is yours is?" Weeks passed before I finally answered one of her calls. Her voice sounded exhausted when she heard mine. "Where are you?" she asked immediately. "I needed space," I said quietly. "For what?" The silence between us lasted several seconds before I spoke again. "I know about the baby," I said. There was a long pause. "What do you mean?" she asked slowly. "The DNA test," I replied. For a moment, I thought the call had dropped because there was no sound on the other end. Then I heard her breathing. "You tested him," she whispered. "Yes." Another silence. Then she said something that completely changed everything. "I've been trying to tell you," she said quietly. Those words confused me. "Tell me what?" I asked. "The same thing the doctor told me last week." My heart started beating faster. "What doctor?" "The fertility specialist," she said. "Before we got pregnant." Suddenly, the conversation was moving in a direction I hadn't expected. Sarah explained something I had never known. Months before the pregnancy, we had visited a fertility clinic because we had been trying to conceive for nearly 2 years without success. I remembered those appointments vaguely, but I had assumed they were routine. What I didn't know was that the doctors had discovered something serious. I was infertile. Sarah had tried to explain it during those months, but every time she started the conversation, I had brushed it off. Work was stressful at the time, and I kept telling her we would deal with it later. Eventually, the doctors suggested using a donor. Sarah agreed, but she thought I had agreed too. The room I was sitting in suddenly felt smaller. "You thought I knew?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she said. I tried to talk about it several times. Memories started rushing back. Conversations I had ignored. Questions I had brushed aside because I didn't want to deal with the possibility that something was wrong. I had walked away from my marriage believing I had been betrayed. But the truth was something completely different. "I'm coming to find you," Sarah said suddenly. "You don't know where I am." "I will," she replied. 2 days later, she did. I was sitting in a small cafe when I saw her walking through the door carrying the baby. For a moment, I felt the same shock I had felt when I saw the test results weeks earlier. But this time, the feeling was different. She sat down across from me without saying anything. The baby was awake now, staring around the room with curious eyes. "He smiles a lot," she said quietly. I didn't know what to say. "I never cheated on you," she continued. "I know that now." The words felt strange leaving my mouth. For weeks, I had convinced myself that my entire marriage had been built on a lie, but the truth was far more complicated. Sometimes people disappear not because they know the truth, but because they're afraid to face it. I disappeared after learning my wife's baby wasn't mine. But when she finally found me, I realized the real problem wasn't the child. It was how easily I had walked away from the person who trusted me the most.